Hello, my name is Fernando Santana, and I'm a teenager, and I'm worried what is happening in my community. Did you know that Mexico is one of the poorest countries in the world, with no equality of economy, bringing consequences like hunger and another type of things. Okay, in Mexico, 12.3% of the population suffer hunger. A few months ago, I go with my father to a place, and when we were road to home, we see an immigrant asking for food because he was poor. Actually, he was poor, and we see we see him suffering because no one can give him attention, or no one have the empathy to give him food or money. So my father and I decide to give him food because money, we think that he can buy another things. This topic is very important because it's one of the most of problems that is suffering Mexico, and I think that if we can have a little bit of empathy, we can reduce the hunger. And a consequence bring by the hunger is the malnutrition. When I was kid, I used to know a friend of my dad that his son has this problem because they were poor. They were poor, and he told me that he don't have access to food, and he actually I always see him sad because it was another consequence of the hunger, or another type of this problem. Uh, did you know that currently 1.5 million of children suffer chronic malnutrition in the country, while 2 million children under 5 are anemic. The largest the largest declines are fighting these problems against malnutrition or chronic malnutrition, but there are few people that are uh, fighting against this because I think people, they don't have empathy to feel what are they feeling the another persons. And the most poor countries, or the countries that has these problems, are California, Baja California, Zacatecas, Nayarit, Tlaxcala, Nuevo León, Chihuahua, Colima, Puebla, and the principal Mexico City. The another consequence that bring is the poverty. My father was a poor person. He tell me, or he count me his history, and he said that poor was a thing that was so horrible because he don't have access to many things, and one of these is the food. He don't have access to food, and he said me that this is a principal thing that cause hunger, because if you don't have food and you don't have the resources, you are suffering hunger and another type of chronic diseases or things like that. He said that he needs to go to a farm to work there, and so he can have uh, food, like for example egg or another type of thing. Poverty, it's a topic related with the hunger because, like I said, if you don't have money, you can have access to the basic needs. The and this is include the food. In 2018, it was estimated that 42% of the Mexican population live in poverty. This figure indicates that about 52 million people in the entire nation live in poverty. In 2015, uh, Chiapas continued in the first state being poor, and the second state was Oaxaca. Oaxaca is a poor country because it says that the 76.2% are living in poverty. And an organization based the state that is called Vamos help the poor people by giving them food, money, or another basic things. At least 10% in 10% of the people in Mexico experiences poor access to food. Experience poor access to food. While the inadequate food access affect between 25 and 35% of the population in 9 states of Mexico. Another consequence that brings hunger or that they are related to hunger is the climate change. Months ago, I go with my uncle that he works in agriculture and he is like working there, and he explained me that if the climate change affects the crops, they in the poor in the rural places they don't have access to food because they have to go to the city and then buy food. And he told me that many of the persons that live in the rural place, they don't have cars or another things because they are poor, and they suffer hunger there because they don't have food in their hands. Climate change is a factor in hunger because, like I said, if the floods, droughts, or another thing affect the crop, the persons that lives in rural place, they can have access to food or to have a good alimentation. Recently, harvests and livelihoods have faltered as a drought, and they took they took all the crops of the rural places. Right now, 39 million of people in Mexico do not have enough to eat, living in rural zones. After drought has devastated several cycles of crops without climate adaptation strategies situated to each reality. Farmers and fish works, they have to go to cities to get unemployment because they are not having their work in the rural zones. So I think that we have to give them support because they need to have something to eat for his family or her family. And I think that if we can have a little bit of empathy with them, they can face hunger in the rural zones. And this is the actual situation that is suffering Mexico about hunger. Thank you for your attention.